Netflix just did what no one, not even Meghan Markle, saw coming. Behind the polished royal image, behind the Netflix cameras, there's been a secret brewing, and now it's exploded into the open. Meghan Markle, once hailed as Netflix's crown jewel, is now the center of a storm she can't charm her way out of. What started as a glossy feel-good series called With Love, Meghan has morphed into a corporate nightmare, one so messy that Netflix's own top brass is investigating her show for plagiarism, creative theft, and serious reputational risk. But here's the kicker. This scandal isn't just about a TV show falling apart. We're talking about the potential collapse of Meghan's entire Hollywood future. Deals are drying up, studios are backing away, and insiders say the next move from Netflix could permanently seal her fate. You're watching Chatterfuse. Don't blink, because what's coming next will stun you. Smash that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed. You're going to want to hear every shocking twist in this Meghan Markle takedown. It's almost hard to believe, isn't it? Meghan Markle, once the dazzling centerpiece of Hollywood cocktail parties, red carpet premieres, and royal headlines, now finds herself on the brink of something she's never faced before, being quietly iced out. For years, Meghan played the perfect game, positioning herself as both a royal rebel and a media darling. She was the woman who could launch a podcast, sign a multi-million-dollar Netflix deal, and spark front-page headlines all in a single week. But today the glow is fading fast. Behind closed doors at Netflix, there's a growing sense of unease. What was meant to be a feel-good project, a glossy, uplifting series that showcased Meghan's voice, her ideas, her influence, has spiraled into a behind-the-scenes headache. We're not just talking about a show struggling to find its audience. We're talking about a project so riddled with creative red flags that Netflix's most senior executives are debating right now how much damage control they can actually pull off. For Meghan, the consequences are personal. This was supposed to be her defining move in the entertainment world, proof that she could step beyond her royal past and command Hollywood on her own terms. Instead, she's watching that dream crumble, piece by piece, as executives whisper about reputational risk, brand liability, and the sobering possibility that Netflix may have bet on the wrong star. And here's where the stakes rise even higher. Netflix itself is under scrutiny. How did one of the most powerful streaming platforms on the planet end up tangled in this mess? How did a show with Meghan Markle's name attached slip so far off course that it triggered an internal investigation? This isn't just Meghan's scandal anymore, it's Netflix's credibility too. And the fallout is just beginning. It all started quietly, not with screaming headlines, not with public press releases, but with murmurs behind the boardroom doors. Netflix executives, usually eager to tout their star-studded partnerships, began circulating private memos, raising discreet alarms about With Love, Meghan. Insiders describe the atmosphere as tense but cautious. No one wanted to overreact. After all, this was Meghan Markle, a global figure, a media magnet, and one of Netflix's most visible celebrity partners. But something about season 2 wasn't sitting right. The production team had flagged it first. Episode outlines felt shaky, plot lines veered dangerously close to inspired by, and in some cases, copied from. Editors, normally tasked with polishing the final product, were reportedly stuck trying to salvage footage that simply didn't hold up under a critical eye. Conversations began swirling internally. Was the show drifting off track? Were the creative decisions veering into risky territory? The tipping point came when legal and compliance teams were looped in, and that's when everything changed. This wasn't just a case of lackluster writing or awkward editing. The investigation pivoted sharply into intellectual property concerns, one of the most dangerous waters any entertainment company can wade into. We're talking about lawyers poring over scripts, comparing scenes, dissecting source material, and quietly asking, are we facing potential lawsuits here? Was With Love, Meghan just creatively thin? Or were lines being crossed that could drag Netflix into legal and reputational chaos? Executives familiar with the matter have said, off the record, that this was not a routine review. Netflix handles hundreds of shows a year, but few ever rise to the level of an internal creative audit. And even fewer get escalated to this kind of deep dive investigation, where every borrowed phrase, every mirroring camera shot, every suspicious creative coincidence is run through legal filters. To make matters worse, the investigation wasn't just about covering creative ground. It was about protecting the Netflix brand, shielding the company from the possibility that one of its most high-profile celebrity projects could become a liability. Behind the scenes, the mood shifted. What had once been whispers of creative drift became something darker, more urgent. This wasn't just a question of salvaging Meghan Markle's show. It was about containing a reputational wildfire before it spread beyond control. And here's the chilling part. Few expected the investigation to turn up what it did. Even the most senior executives who had signed off on Meghan's deal with enthusiasm just a year prior were reportedly stunned by what the audit uncovered. Suddenly, the question wasn't just whether the show could be saved. It was whether Netflix itself could walk away unscathed. Here's where the whispers turned into alarm bells. In Hollywood, there's always a fine line between inspiration and imitation. Filmmakers borrow visual cues, screenwriters reference pop culture, and reality TV often riffs on formulas that have worked before. But what Netflix investigators uncovered in With Love, Meghan didn't just raise eyebrows. It raised serious legal red flags. Let's break this down. Episode 4 wasn't just inspired by Hell's Kitchen. Insiders say it lifted entire chunks of dialogue nearly word for word. Viewers with a sharp ear noticed the tense back and forth between contestants, the dramatic one-liners, the precise pacing, all eerily reminiscent of Gordon Ramsay's iconic kitchen meltdowns. By episode 7, things escalated. The unscripted antics, the chaotic handheld shots, the overly familiar real-world confessionals. Critics say it all felt like a carbon copy of Jersey Shore. And we're not talking about general vibes or pop culture winks. We're talking about framing choices, gestures, and even camera angles that mirrored MTV's infamous reality juggernaut. Then came the Malibu Beach disaster, a segment multiple sources have described as shockingly similar to an episode of Survivor, not just in mood, but in the actual phrasing used on camera, the way contestants were presented, the pacing of the challenges. One production assistant reportedly joked off the record, all that was missing was Jeff Probst stepping in with a tribal council. But perhaps the most damaging accusation hit even closer to home: the culinary sequences. Critics, fans, and even rival producers pointed out that entire cooking segments seemed to recreate scenes straight out of Pamela Anderson's Cooking with Love, right down to the specific dishes showcased and the playful, flirty, on-camera commentary. At this point, Netflix's legal team was no longer just concerned about bad press. They were staring down the barrel of potential intellectual property lawsuits, where creative inspiration would no longer fly as a defense. Artistic homage can be explained away, patterned imitation can sometimes be forgiven, but full-on plagiarism? That's the kind of allegation that turns corporate boardrooms ice cold. For Netflix, the stakes were terrifyingly clear. They were now exposed. A single angry studio, a sharp-eyed legal department, or a viral social media thread could turn this quiet investigation into a public, multi-million-dollar disaster. And Meghan Markle, the very face of the show, was right at the center of it. What began as whispers of creative laziness had snowballed into something far uglier. A credibility crisis threatening to drag everyone involved into a legal and reputational black hole. To her credit, Meghan Markle didn't fold under the weight of the accusations, at least not publicly. Her team went on the offensive, carefully crafting a narrative that framed With Love Meghan not as a copycat project, but as a love letter to pop culture. According to sources close to her camp, Meghan positioned the similarities as intentional, arguing that in today's media-saturated world, it's impossible, and even undesirable, to create in a vacuum. She was tapping into cultural touchstones, reinterpreting familiar formats, and playing with audience expectations. Not stealing, she claimed, but paying homage. It was a bold defense, one that tapped into the blurry ethics of modern reality TV, where originality often takes a back seat to marketable formulas. But here's where things got messy. Not everyone inside Netflix was buying it. Ted Sarandos, Netflix's co-CEO and longtime champion of celebrity partnerships, reportedly urged patience. He saw Meghan's value not just in her current projects, but in her star power, her global audience, her potential to anchor other deals. Sarandos was worried that rushing to punish her might create an even bigger PR disaster, one that could alienate other A-listers watching the fallout from the sidelines. But Greg Peters, Netflix's more cautious and analytical CEO, saw the situation differently. For Peters, this wasn't just about one celebrity or one show. It was about the platform's reputation as a whole. Netflix was already facing mounting criticism over declining content quality, subscriber churn, and fierce competition from other streamers. The last thing it needed was to look complicit in a scandal involving intellectual property theft. Peters reportedly pushed for immediate action. Pull the problematic episodes, get ahead of the legal risk, and show the world that Netflix holds even its most famous partners accountable. This leadership split wasn't just a background detail. It became a pivotal turning point. With two top executives pulling in opposite directions, the company's response slowed to a crawl. Meetings dragged on, statements were delayed. Internal teams were left guessing which direction to follow. And as Netflix fumbled its response, the damage was already spreading. Meghan's defenders framed her as a misunderstood artist. Her critics doubled down on accusations of arrogance and entitlement. Meanwhile, the industry watched, not just curious about Meghan's fate, but about how far Netflix was willing to bend to protect its celebrity investments. At this point, the Meghan Markle scandal stopped being just Meghan's problem. It became Netflix's crisis. What was once a glamorous celebrity partnership had turned into a cautionary tale, forcing Netflix to confront an uncomfortable truth. Had it been too reckless in chasing celebrity deals? For years, Netflix banked on big names, trusting fame to carry projects across the finish line. But Meghan's debacle exposed the cracks. Suddenly, teams were questioning who was approving these shows and whether deals were based on talent or simply social media clout. The fallout hit fast. Production slowed, legal reviews piled up, reshoots drained time and money, and executives scrambled to protect the brand. In short, Netflix wasn't just trying to win the content race anymore. It was fighting to protect its reputation from the very celebrity deals it once celebrated. As Netflix scrambled behind the scenes, Meghan Markle faced a much colder, more personal reckoning. Hollywood quietly shutting its doors. For years, Meghan's royal status had been her golden ticket. Opening meetings, landing pitches, and drawing in sponsors, all on the strength of her name. But after the plagiarism scandal erupted inside Netflix, that shine faded almost overnight. Suddenly, reports surfaced. Amazon Studios had passed on her latest project. Podcast deals that once seemed promising went silent. Even reality TV producers, usually eager for celebrity drama, grew cautious. Why? Because Meghan no longer just carried media buzz. She now carried legal baggage. No studio wants to risk being caught in a lawsuit crossfire. No producer wants to back a show that could collapse midstream. And no executive wants to explain why they gambled company money on a figure tangled in scandal. Insiders whisper that Meghan may try to self-finance future projects to stay afloat. But let's be blunt. That path is steep, lonely, and rarely ends well without the muscle of a major distributor. This isn't just a career slowdown. It's a full-on credibility crisis, the kind Hollywood watches carefully and rarely forgives. Here's where the story zooms out, beyond Meghan Markle, beyond Netflix, and into the bigger picture of how Hollywood is shifting. The Meghan scandal isn't happening in isolation, it's part of a larger cultural reset. Once, a celebrity name could guarantee funding, contracts, and eager audiences. But today, that old formula is cracking. Audiences are more skeptical, craving substance over star power. Studios and streaming platforms, under mounting pressure, are no longer impressed by fame alone. They want results, quality, and accountability. For Meghan, the timing couldn't be worse. She rose at the tail end of the celebrity as currency era, and now finds herself caught in a landscape where every deal comes with stricter terms and far less forgiveness for missteps. In truth, Meghan's fall is just one example of a broader reckoning. The days of blank checks and automatic green lights are fading. And for stars who've built their brands more on image than output, the path forward is looking steeper and far less forgiving. So where does this leave Meghan Markle, Netflix, and the industry at large? Meghan faces a tough road ahead, not just in salvaging her reputation, but in proving she can deliver original, meaningful content that holds up under scrutiny. Netflix, for its part, must wrestle with its own accountability. How did a project with this many red flags get so far without intervention? And for Hollywood, the bigger lesson looms. Celebrity is no longer a shield. We'd love to hear your perspective. Has the industry become too lenient with celebrity projects? Is Meghan's situation the result of bad luck or systemic failures on both sides? Join the conversation in the comments, and if you enjoy thoughtful, deep dive commentary, consider subscribing to Chatter Fuse. We'll be here, unpacking the stories behind the headlines. Because in this media landscape, the headlines are just the beginning.